Hi, Syed. This conversation is going to explore what exciting projects ReFi needs. So I'm really excited about this topic, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing all the great stuff that people think and what they're working on.
Hello, Attack. Yeah, that's great.
Hi, Syed. Hi, Kennedy.
Hello, Kennedy.
Are you guys having internet issues?
All doing?
Yeah, I'm doing good on my end.
Awesome. Hi, Attack.
Hi, Kennedy. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good. So this room today is going to explore what exciting projects does ReFi need. Um, so yeah, I'm just really looking forward to like hearing other people's thoughts and what projects are needed in the space.
Yeah, I think Muhammad is the one who has given this idea. So let's ask him what's his views on this.
I've invited you, Mohammed, to speak.
I see we are joined on the call by Mike B. Welcome, Mike. How are you doing, man?
Hello, Mike. Yeah, Mike, have you explored the NFTs that Shamba is basically providing the data to?
Hey, what's up?
We are
What's up,
having
guys?
some
Sorry, man.
NFT use cases. Yeah, hello, Mike. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you guys?
Yeah, we are also good. So actually, I'm just asking, did you get a chance to explore Shamba official repositories? Like it's having NFT use
I
case
think I
for air
checked out
quality,
the
dynamic
repo,
NFT.
but I didn't really get
Mm-hmm.
to dive in. I've been a little too busy, more busy than I want to be recently. But definitely, it's on the map. What happened with the hackathon, man? That was gonna be my excuse to focus in on it.
Yeah, hey, Mike. So that's a great question. And we had a call last week. I think you might have missed it. We had a call with SNI, the Sovereign Nature Initiative. And on that call, we were announcing our new and revised plans for the hackathon. So we actually we decided that rather than Shamba holding a hackathon on its own, we are going to partner with the Sovereign Nature Initiative to do a joint hackathon, and you're going to be partners with them in the upcoming hackathon in Q4. So get ready for it. It will be very exciting. I'm going to be sending you the details around when to apply and all of that. But essentially, it is something that it should be a great opportunity for you to explore building solutions, especially for biodiversity. So look out for that. Watch this space. Yeah.
What is Q4? That's like the end of the year.
Yeah. So thinking of around October.
Okay. Right. I'm gonna try to craft up a DNFT before then, so I'll be a pro by October.
Awesome. That's the whole idea. And as Syed has mentioned, we have some new codes. Syed has been working on what are called super dynamic NFTs. So yeah, definitely it would be great
Super.
to have you playing around with those and hopefully even putting something together before the hackathon, kicks off.
Okay, I heard super. I like that. So what's how we go from dynamic to super?
Yeah, actually, like the word super signifies that like it's more dynamic somewhat. Like it, so actually it can have like every minute variation or so. You can so actually you can check the use case that I have built like as of now for Ethereum to USD conversions, and you can also come up with your own ideas like related to how we can utilize the Shamba Oracle in that and all.
Sweet. I'm gonna look at the GitHub now.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, it's not on GitHub as of now. Like, if you want the code, then you can basically let me know. Like, I will help you out with that.
Okay. All right.
And
I'll shoot you an email.
yeah, yeah, sure, sure. You can also check one of my tweets, like I have mentioned about that Ethereum to USD super dynamic NFT in that.
Copy that.
So, host, Attack, tell us about exciting projects that ReFi needs. You want to kick off the conversation?
Yeah, actually, so I was looking this week. I saw a project. I think it's Gila, um, and they planted about 30 trees in Kenya. And they had actually made a post a few weeks ago and asked people on Twitter which country they should actually plant the trees at. And the majority of people wanted them to plant the trees in Kenya. And they actually end up doing it that. And so, yeah, it was really, really exciting to see that. I think what I'm actually also excited about is like um, using ReFi to like, train people and like where they're able to actually uh, plant trees and what have you. So you provide training to a farmer, and in exchange, they end up planting a tree and looking after that tree. So I think that's actually something I would actually love to see in this space. So yeah, that's just my thought. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Mohammed, would you like to contribute in that? Because, yeah, I think you are having some views of yours.
You guys hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
I'm so sorry. I was having a little bit of a problem with my mic, but yeah, I also saw that the project that the host mentioned, and yeah, I also think it's very interesting to find that these projects are actually coming up to try and uh, take advantage of the technologies that we have out there to better the environment. So I am not really sure. I didn't really go into the details. I'm not really sure basically what the concept is behind that project, but it seems to be a very interesting project. So yeah, I believe there are so many other projects coming up in the space, and it will be interesting to see what direction would take with these projects.
Okay, great.
Sia, do you have
Back to you,
any
Attack.
do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, actually, I'm also new to ReFi, so basically learning everything from Kennedy as far as I get chance.
Yeah, so I do have a project that I think is pretty, exciting in ReFi, and this is the ReFi Springs, this ReFi Springs event. So ReFi DAO have been organizing this series of global meetups, bringing people in Web3 from different communities together and holding this in different countries. And Kenya is one of the countries where we are setting this up. Actually, Shamba is one of the organizing parties putting together ReFi Kenya. I've already seen other events being mooted. I think I've seen ReFi Berlin, ReFi, I've seen ReFi Springs events, several of them. And I think it's pretty awesome because, at the core of Web3 is the whole ethos around bringing people together, that whole element of collaboration, community. So what better project that one that actually brings people together? So I think ReFi DAO and ReFi Springs, those guys are doing a fantastic job. Pretty exciting. Yeah.
Mike, Mike B, what do you reckon in terms of like what exciting projects do you think ReFi needs?
Uh, I'm always going to talk about this concept that I've yet to do any work on, shamefully, which is like the idea of being able to kind of put like geo bounties and using kind of the Shamba tech to incentivize land changes from local people in the area.
No, that's really awesome. Sam, do you have anything to add?
Sorry, I got a call. Can you
Okay. Hi. I hope everyone can hear me. Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. Yeah. So for me, I'm also here to learn. But I think my contribution will be around. I remember last week's Twitter space was all about the like getting Web3 applications to farmers. So in these weeks, I think one of the exciting projects that mine is much of an idea of what I think maybe would be exciting. It's not per se some of the projects that exist out there, but I think I would really like to see projects or something coming up around financing to the farmers, access to financing. Like now in Kenya, we have what we call M-Pesa. Nowadays, you can just, it's a mobile application. So even if a farmer, regardless of the technology they have, we have agents, we have those mobile phones to just receive the cash directly to your mobile phone. So I think once we get there, it will be so exciting because at the moment, as I talked about in the last Twitter space, so by like we are adding value. When people see value, of course, they'll contribute more and we shall have a better world. Thank you.
Yeah, no, totally. Mike B, sorry, I think I cut you off there.
Oh no, I was just saying I got a phone call, so I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, okay. No, sorry. No, I just asked Sam whether he could add put in a contribution. Mohammed is just coming in. I guess like what other projects have you seen this week? Like what's something exciting in terms of ReFi? Yeah.
Something that intrigues me. This isn't necessarily new. It's like land backed. I forgot who was doing, maybe EcoRise, but like, and I think Cello is also doing this, but it's like land backed stable coins or like backing these different cryptos or tokens with actual like real assets, right? Like before it was gold backed, but I mean, gold does actually have use in science and things, but it's still somewhat of a contrived value system. So like just backing currencies with land or forestry or things like that, I think that's a really interesting concept.
I also have a contribution. Another interesting idea that has come to my head. A project that I'm familiar with. I think they're working in the NFT space, and they're called Sangens. And one of the exciting things that I've been looking at, I've been seeing them do is, bringing the fusion of ReFi, Web3, and mental health, and looking at the junction of those three things. So, one of the biggest things that occurs to me is especially after the pandemic and, some of the problems that the world is going through with inflation, some of the problems in Europe with the war and all that. People are having a lot of mental health challenges these days. People are struggling with depression and all of these challenges. And so it's great to see a project in the space that is actually looking at some of these things. And I think the team at Sangens are doing a great job. I'm actually part of that community, and trying to figure out how we can also empower them as they are doing all that great work between ReFi and mental health, how we can also empower them by injecting in ecological data and such other things into what they're doing. So yeah, that's another pretty exciting project I'm aware of. Yeah.
I would be curious to know, Kennedy, like, is in the space, is mental health really talked a lot about?
Yeah, that's the interesting question. I think so far, being in the ReFi space, I've actually only had like two projects actually like really tackling it. Unfortunately, I forget the name of the second project. I just remember there was a lady who was speaking about it, and it sounded really cool. I do them no justice by forgetting, but it was just one of those projects that was really cool, and they were talking about how they're empowering people, helping people struggle with mental health. But to answer your question, Attack, I think there aren't a lot of people working in that space, and maybe we need more.
No,
Yeah,
totally.
maybe there. I've seen some of those applications that are like pay to move or stuff like that. I don't know if fundamentally they're actually sustainable, but it would be cool to see something like pay to plant seeds, kind of like the mix of ReFi and that in crypto.
I think maybe I have a point to contribute. I think, and that is a point on what might be just mentioned. I remember might be in one of the sessions mentioning about incentives to making the environment a bit better. And I actually thought about that in details, and it was a cool idea. Maybe, of course, there are some challenges at the moment because of everything seems to be so new. But I think it's something worth exploring because looking forward into the future, like if you are bringing value and you incentivize these guys to do better, same way we are working with farmers or even other participants or other partners within the various sectors. Of course, if someone is able to see value, they'll be able to do better, and they'll actually be the ones invoking some innovation, which basically will lead to much like better ways of doing business. So it's like you're bringing fun and business together, whereby someone does what they like or what they're passionate about, but at the same time they are earning. So I think that makes it quite an awesome, and it's something that I'm waiting to see what people will have to do in this space.
Hey, I have a question. I think to bounce off of what you're saying, what is the smallest kind of unit or scale that we can look at environmental change for something that might like be close to like forestry or agriculture, more so like agriculture or maybe like a micro forestry, for like positive environmental changes on a smaller scale.
Yeah, I think that question, Mike, it basically touches maybe on an element of resolution and the data resolution. So I think with publicly available data sets, looking at something like Landsat, which has like 30-meter resolution, or maybe Sentinel-2 with 10-meter resolution. I think actually, looking at something like maybe an acre or so, that might be something that might actually be feasible with 10-meter resolution. But then again, most of the free data sets that are available are not at that medium to high resolution. Most of them, if you're thinking of something like Moody's, you're looking at 250 meters, 500 meters. And the bigger data sets looking at things like soil moisture, vegetative indices, or drought indices are even higher. So I think when it comes to the how much you can zoom in and how high resolution you can get, I think there isn't really a limit, but there is a threshold where you cross where public data sets can no longer be applicable, and you have to now start considering maybe some high resolution commercial data sets from the like of Maxa or some of those other commercial providers. But there really isn't a limit in terms of that, because when you're looking at commercial data sets, let's take for instance Maxa, their world digital world 3, I think it's something like 0.3 to 0.4 meters, so that's like 30 to 40 centimeters. So practically even a very small piece of land can still be mapped and you can still collect a ton of data over it, but now the cost becomes very expensive. So I think it's kind of like a balance between what is feasible versus what is sustainable, economic wise. Yeah.
So I guess maybe it would be better to model any kind of incentives towards communities rather than um, like a family.
Exactly. I think that's a really good way to go. And even when you think about how ecosystems work, like when you're looking at a landscape, let's say for instance a watershed, it's all interrelated. What is happening up in the croplands is affecting what is happening down in the groundwater, down in the rivers, down to the lakes. So it's like an entire connected ecosystem. And I think looking at it from that perspective, that landscape perspective, is much better than looking at it at very localized, maybe plot level kind of scale. Yeah.
What do you think would be the best, I guess, kind of index to use for something like incentivizing a community to have like more sustainable agricultural practices in a way that maybe ties into, like a bigger narrative about like climate change and soil health, stuff like that?
Yeah, so I think with respect to that, there are various things that can be done. For instance, I think monitoring for sustainable land management practices. When I think of soils in particular, I'm thinking about some of the factors that lead to the carbon that is being stored in soils, escaping. And so, practices like planting ground cover, having cover crops, so that the soil surface is not exposed to the elements. That is, one of the big ways in which farmers can reduce the amount of carbon being released by their soils. And this is something that can be picked up by sensors, because whatever is planted will definitely have a some signature when it comes to the chlorophyll, and it can be detected. So I think cover crops are one of them, but also mechanical, or what I would call physical structures. So I'm thinking about terraces in this instance. Terraces are those structures that are normally built on sloping land to prevent runoff from rains carrying the topsoil from the land that is sloped into the rivers down below. So terraces are put in place to create this step-like structure that actually slows down the momentum of water and prevents the kind of runoff that would carry off a lot of soil. And once again, these structures, terraces, they are big structures. They can be detected in satellite imagery. There are things that can be picked up in imagery. So this is again something that can be monitored and can actually be proven to be happening. But I think at the end of the day, even though there might be several interventions that can be detected by satellite imagery, it's also important to realize that there are certain limitations. For instance, with imagery, you might be able to say that people are doing something somewhere, but in order to be able to properly quantify or even to verify some of the modeling which you've done, you do need ground data. So I think at the end of the day, whatever is being done on the remote sensing side needs to be complemented, maybe to some extent, by some ground truthing data. But I do believe there are several sustainable land management practices, that can be put within the ReFi framework, and that can allow farmers to benefit from the new paradigm. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you. That's super informative. What what do you think the best way to kind of implement ground truthing into like a blockchain technology like Shamba?
Well, I think this is all about working with partners. So I think what we are seeing in the Web3 space, and especially in digital MRV, is the element of decentralization, such that you're having some partners who are coming in with competency in satellite imagery, remote sensing, and collecting data remotely and analyzing that, running models and whatnot, which is what Shamba does. But you are also having other partners coming in with other core competencies. An example is Athena Protocol, who are specializing in Internet of Things devices and sensors that can be embedded on the ground. And so they are coming in and they're actually putting that up, and they then fill a certain niche within that digital MRV stack. And then you're having other projects like Ogo are working, with people on the ground, boots on the ground. So they're the people who are actually, they're working with people in the local communities who are able to provide that human element of MRV, and they again occupy another place within the stack. So when I think about how the ReFi stack will work, is that it will have multiple players, each contributing something towards the overall stack. And so when I think of something like farmers, I think Shamba will be coming in with the geospatial ecological data side of things, but we will definitely need to hold hands with other partners who are contributing something different. Yeah.
So is Ogo like connected to an Oracle, or I'm just thinking of like in terms of like developing some kind of smart contract, or would they maybe just need to sign something? Like how would that work?
Yeah, I think the way it will work is that they would probably be like validators. So let's say maybe you're building an application or a protocol that consumes ecological data. You'd have probably your application consuming ecological data from Shamba to do the process of measurement and verification. Creating those products that are being sold within that ecosystem. But then you'd have guys like Ogo being validators. People who can come in and they can be able to inject their boots on the ground knowledge in order to validate some of the things that have been, that are happening. Let me give a good example. Open Forest Protocol. They are working with, I think they have like 20 different validators. So when somebody is actually creating an ecological credit on chain, and they are using Open Forest Protocol to be able to provide MRV for it, one party within the Open Forest Protocol might be providing the data that is required for the measurement. Another party might be providing data required for verification, and they would all be different validators. So they are all validating a claim that a third party has made on chain about a certain credit actually existing. So I don't think everything might actually be automated the way we are doing it within Shamba. I think the way we are doing it within Shamba is a factor of the kind of data we are working with. But when I think of things like on the ground data that is being collected by people, whether that is using mobile applications or whatnot, or even when I think about things like soil sampling and such data sets that need to be stored maybe on a ledger like Regen, there are some aspects that I don't think might be automatable, but then the validators would come in to validate what has been automated, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess my one thing is like it just in terms of like the payments being released, um, and just kind of trying, I guess maybe trying to honor some of the utility of the smart contract and like how you can program money as it will. So just um, thinking of, so you have some on the ground validators, and then maybe they have you know maybe it's like a multi sig or something like that, and they can sign, they can authorize a transaction to go through. Just thinking about it in that way.
Yeah, that makes sense. And to be honest, I'm not fully sure how the Ogo platform works. I do know it is a blockchain based application. So they probably do have that in the back end. I really don't know how it works under the hood, but I do believe the information is somehow saved on chain in a way that can then be channeled into smart contracts, but it is saved by people. And there is a mechanism that ties back to the people who provided the data and allows them to get incentives for it. Yeah.
And how do I OGO?
Yeah, I think it's ORGO, if I'm not wrong. I think they're called Orgo. Is it Orgo Earth? I'm not very sure. You can just check them out, really.
Okay, I'm looking for them now.
Hey Kennedy.
Okay, I found them.
Thank you for inviting me to speak here. I wanted to ask you a question on top of that because we were getting into some of the layers that are required for eco credits here, and we talked about sort of the quality layer and the data layer, right? But I'm really wondering, what are your thoughts on how the enforcement layer can be sort of architected, and what's going to be required to identify, the changes in the stages of eco credits, requirements, term length, and compliance? Are these some of the things that you think about at Shamba?
Yeah, hi Jackies, and yeah, thanks for that question. So these are some of the elements which we are now starting to look into, especially now that we are also working on a solution that is working around carbon credits. So looking at such things such as compliance, what is required for a credit to actually be legitimate and all that. But to be honest with you, we are still at a very early stage with all of these things. What we are trying to do, and what I've seen a lot of people doing, is that there's this movement around creating certain standards within Web3 and ReFi that can be accepted. They can be sort of like the on-chain equivalent of Vera, so that there are certain standards that everybody actually accepts and people play to, and everybody adheres to. So I think that is one of the directions that I've been seeing, and in a lot of the forums that I've attended, I've had people speaking about this, but I don't have a lot of information, especially on the issues of compliance and all that. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Kennedy, go on. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask, is it easier to build a blockchain, or is it actually providing the technology to the end users, especially the farmers? Which one would be more challenging, I guess?
Okay, if I was to take that, and I apologize for hogging the space, guys. I just love answering questions. But if I was to take that, I would say, building is always the easier part of it. Building a technology, getting a bunch of smart people together who can string together code functionality and all of that. I think as challenging as that usually is, it's usually the easier part of things. Perhaps much more difficult is, building something that people are going to want to use, and probably something that people will use over a long term. That is more of a challenge. And when I think, especially around farmers, there are so many intersectional challenges towards them using technology, and especially, high cutting edge technology. There are so many intersectional challenges. There's also a lot that needs to be done in terms of capacity building, awareness building, even. So I think the business aspect and the use case of it, that is where I think most of the work lies, not really in putting together the technology. Yeah, but that's my opinion. I'd be curious to hear what maybe some things about it.
Okay. In my opinion, I think as Ken have just said some much of what it entails. So, of course, as a developer looking into building solutions, the hardest part, I think, the easiest part is usually building the product. But now the hard part is getting people to use the product. because there's a lot that goes into it. Like there's aspect of design, aspect of usability, aspect of what is working and what needs improvement. So I think as what we've seen in most of the projects out there, like there's so much happening on the space. Everyone is changing their solutions every now and then to adapt to what the customer requires. So I think the most of the work, as Ken says, goes into integrating the business into the product. So of course, I know from a business angle, most people will of course come up with a plan before building, but in most cases you find those plans are never followed because what you thought was to happen actually changes along the way. And as a developer, you need to change to adapt to the new paradigms that are there in the market. So I think the building or the technology part of it all is the easiest, but now because you cannot build a solution that hasn't or does not have users. So I think connecting that is where the work lies. If you look at the current ReFi thing, there's so many people or everyone is talking about Web3, ReFi, Web3, but they're talking from the aspect of the like usage or the concept, but they are not talking from the aspect of the product. This is because you need to initialize or you need to come up with the market research, understand what people need, know what is existing before you even go into building the product. Because you build the product after you've validated your idea, you know what technology to use, and that's it. So yeah, that's my contribution.
No, thank you. Anyone else?
I guess I'm curious about like other sensors coming online, like maybe like ground sensors, um, to kind of create a richer data ecosystem, if you will. Has anyone heard of different kind of on-chain like sensors?
Well, as I mentioned, there are guys like Adena Protocol working on IoT. I'm excited about something we're working on at Shamba. I don't want to preempt by announcing it early, but we are working on some partnerships to actually bring on commercial data that is very high resolution. So that's pretty exciting, and I think once we have that in the bag, we should be able to open up a whole new range of solutions that require very high resolution, whether that is spatial or temporal. So that's something that is pretty exciting. It's still in the works. I think it's still a ways off, and we'll give you guys more updates when that is closer to being released.
Ooh, sounds exciting.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, data is what opens up. When I think of the chicken and egg problem, what comes first? Is it like the data needs to exist, and then you can build, you can be able to build a solution around it? Or should you first of all build a solution and then go looking for the data to support it? I think both are important, but I think as a way of solving that chicken and egg problem, providing the data is important, because the same data set can actually be used by multiple parties for multiple uses. And so I feel like once you've provided data, then you've opened up the possibility of what people can do with it. So yeah, excited to see once this is ready, what people will be able to do with it.
Nice. Yeah, I'm excited too.
And with the sensors that are actually on ground, are they able to work on multiple projects like cross chains and stuff?
Ooh, that's a good question. I hope so.
Yeah. Essentially, I think when it comes to how we are working at Shamba and how we are building the Oracle, we believe the future is cross-chain. The future of Web3 is going to be cross-chain for sure. It's not going to be a one chain, takes it all. It's going to be a situation whereby you have different chains being really good for different things and having these interconnections and synergies. So the way we are building the Shamba Oracle is for it to be cross-chain, and that's a really big design goal for us. We are still bridging to other networks, and we do believe that over time we should have this operational on almost any network where people are building solutions. So that's going to be pretty exciting. I think, as I've said, the future is going to be cross-chain for sure.
No, I don't have anything else to add. Unless if anyone else have any question or anything to contribute, feel free to jump in.
I do have one question about kind of like cost and running like a smart contract for Shamba. I guess so. I'm guessing you can put it on Polygon. I'm just thinking of like if it's going to be checking, the Oracle records every week or every month. Like, what is the cost associated with actually putting those smart contracts on the blockchain?
Yeah, I think the cost aspect is dual. There's the lesser part of it, which is the cost of the data, and I think that one will be very low, especially considering we are talking about public data sets that are currently available on our Oracle. Those ones will be, it's just basically covering the cost of the data validators, the people who are providing data to the network. But I think the bigger cost is usually the gas cost. So I think
Yeah.
figuring out where to deploy the smart contracts, let's say for instance a dynamic NFT that maybe changes multiple times a day depending on the data. If you deploy this on the wrong contract, on the wrong platform, then it becomes a very expensive undertaking. But if you deploy it on a network maybe like Polygon, where the fees are so low, then it becomes very sustainable. So I think the bigger part of the cost is going to definitely be with regards to the gas. The data cost itself will be very low, and I think potentially that's why we are looking at making Shamba a cross-chain oracle so that devs can decide where they want to deploy, depending on what kind of ecosystem they want to fit in, what the application is about. There should be that flexibility. But I think gas cost is where it's going to be the biggest, price point. Yeah.
As of now, could I deploy a Shamba D NFT or Super D NFT to Polygon?
Yes, you can.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so just to add on to that, we have the Shamba Oracle bridge to the Polygon network. You can deploy it on the Mumbai testnet. And if you want to go ahead and do a mainnet deployment, just let us know and we can connect you to the mainnet node. That all of that
Okay,
is actually ready. Yeah.
awesome. Thanks.
Awesome.
Shout out to Aether, like the co-founder of Gila, which we mentioned before. The project that was able to plant 30, actually not 30 trees in Kenya. So yeah, definitely give them a follow, and they're a pretty awesome project, and yeah.
30 trees.
Yeah, 30 trees in Kenya, and they did a poll like a couple of weeks ago, which country they should plant trees in, and most people chose Kenya, so that was very cool. And so yeah, they went ahead and did it. So
Cool. What kind of trees?
I'm not sure what type of trees that they planted, but yeah.
I think Eda can give us an update on that.
Yeah, I have invited him to join or to speak. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. Maybe my last contribution on this is so I think in this space, what we find that, for example, if you plant trees, for example, now in the case of Gaia, like you find that you impact like the community directly because can go to these communities, ask them to plant trees, or ask them to do something that's around their environment, and they'll be so willing to do it. I think now ReFi needs to come up with solutions that are basically, apart from just them seeing like changes in the environment, like if you have a forest, of course you have good water source and all that. If now we could come up with solutions that would basically uplift their financial standards, whereby they could actually say that our environment is giving us this much amount of money or amount of livelihood, I think that would be cool. I'm willing to actually explore various projects that are around this kind of approach because I think that is one that will have a lot of impact in the near future. Thank you, guys.
Heck yeah, I'm all about getting people paid, man.
Either you've joined the speaker.
Yeah, can you hear me, guys?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
It's pretty noisy. I'm in a public transport, so I won't be able to talk that much. That's why I didn't answer the request.
No worries at all.
Well, to answer for the trees species, I have to get back to you because we worked with one tree planted. So I need to get back to you for the kind of trees we planted. But otherwise, yeah, Shamba, definitely hop on the call maybe next week. So you send me a message to talk more in detail about ReFi and Gaia. All right?
That sounds awesome.
Awesome.
Thanks for that.
Great work, man. Thanks.
Sam, I wonder, like, in terms of like trees, I wonder, like, is some trees more advantaged? Like, for example, like mangoes, because people can like eat them and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering, are planting some trees like better than others? I don't know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, good point. What usually happens is that it will depend from place to place. For example, there are some trees that do not grow in certain ecological or certain environments. So you'll find, like, let me give an example of Kenya. You'll find there are some communities who plant a lot of avocados and mangoes because basically that is their source of revenue every year. The others who plant so many trees because probably they need wood after it because that is also a source of income. But of course, it usually conflicts a lot with the legal framework because like now we have laws that have come in where you should not cut down trees for wood. What usually happens is depending on the type of tree that you have, there are some trees that are big emitters in terms of like, because at the end of the day, we are looking at the issues of carbon emissions. So for the case of like mangrove trees, you find that they are sequesters. So you find they suck a lot of carbon from the space. So in an area, for example, the coastal region, there are so many because of also the environment. They cannot do well in the islands or where, for example, like around mountains. So you find them mostly within marshy areas, which is the coast. So you find in such an area, communities around there could actually get a lot of funding or can get money from those kind of fields because they are sequestering carbon from the atmosphere. And then, of course, the other guys on the islands, they are source of water. So you find if a tree is well conserved, if a forest is well conserved, there's good source of water, clean water, and sustainable water for the communities. And also quality of either quality of timber or quality of the fruits that come from this forest. You find that it's also high when it is well preserved. So depending on the regions, the type of trees, and also, for example, the purpose, whereby if you look at, for example, South like Brazil, you find they have a forests around communities. It's a kind of an ecosystem where they get all their products. They get fruits, they get wood, and they have vast land under these forest covers. So I think it would also integrate well with the aspect of source of income for these communities, because at the end of the day, it's all about making a change within this community. So if you look even at
This
the campaigns that are around tree planting in many countries, they usually plant a specific type of tree. This is because maybe that tree has an advantage over the future, or you find that that tree probably benefits the community that is in that place. So, of course, it will depend, and it will also matter depending on the system that is there and also the region at which you are talking about.
Yes, yes, you are right, Sam. So actually, to add more onto that, like I would like to basically tell about like what has happened in India. Like, so they also basically, so actually they started basically a compulsion on every industry who, like, whichever industries are contributing to the pollution of the like of India, they also need to plant some trees, some farms. So that's how basically like Mukesh Ambani of Reliance Jio has basically proceeded with planting the mango trees, mango farms, and he has also made that into a business, which is basically by making it as the largest mango producer of Asia. So yeah, that's all related to ReFi, I think. Like by making it finance, by converting it into finance and regeneration as well.
Now I want some mangoes.
Yeah. Yeah, actually mango is basically the national fruit of India. So
Some mango
it's very
chutney.
popular. Yeah, yeah. There is
What
a
about
basically lot of scope of mangoes in India. Like the mango
man, I'm
farmers are
jealous.
multi-millionaire.
Man, we have just like the leftover mangoes. I'm much higher in latitude than everybody here. I'm in Chicago in the States.
Oh,
Um,
okay, okay. So how do you basically get mangoes for yourself?
I mean, they all get imported, right? So maybe from Florida, but a lot of times from like Mexico or the Caribbean
Yeah,
or
yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, actually I have heard that Mexico is the basically largest like exporter of mango when it comes
And
to basically US.
you're a mango expert, Saeed.
I think
Yeah.
the whole narrative is around if you look at what is happening at the moment, the population in various countries is rising, and most guys want farms where they can plant food. So I think the entire story is all about like how do you convince someone to plant something that sequesters carbon, and they cannot actually get direct money, whereas they plant, for example, maize, or they plant mangoes and they find direct cash from it. So I think this is what we I was talking about earlier, whereby we need to bring, even if it's not like per se within like a 1 year period or 2 year period, but when it matures, like they will have a direct impact or direct source of income. Because I think that is what is worrying most people in terms of how can I access food, how can I plant my own food for cheaper access for this same food. So I think that is what is really having a lot of like it's a big blocker to most of the projects, whereby you find that guys plant trees. Like now here in Kenya, there's a project that happened in some of the forest, whereby the guys planted more than 1,000 trees. But after a year, there was no tree because guys had gone into that area and planted maize, beans, and all those kind of food crops. So this is what is really happening, and these are issues that are actually on the ground. So how we convert this to the advantage of bringing the entire ReFi story into action, I think we also need to think so much about in this area.
Yeah. I do have a question for you guys, and it's more of a general question regarding ReFi. So I think ReFi stands. I believe ReFi stands for regenerative finance, and the finance bit is a really important part of it. But for me, the way I see the finance bit, it's more about the incentive. So I've actually been thinking about it. is there room for alternative incentives, or is it all about the finances? And if yes, then what are the other examples of incentives that we can offer to these conservationists so that they can continue their good work in making the environment better? Just a general question for the entire floor.
Maybe I could take that one first. I think when I think of regenerative finance, what comes to my mind is systems, and I'm talking about especially global systems that run the world. Um, I'm thinking about the way maybe the economic system is set up to be like like a zero sum game whereby one person has to win and others have to lose. We have economic systems that are not aligned with either the sustainability of the planet or even of our own race itself. We are basically like burning the candle too fast, and we are risking burning out. So I think regenerative finance, it's more than just the incentives to the farmer. It's about how can we, rewrite the entire system of how value is exchanged around the world, so that it becomes, cognizant of both people and the environment, and that it puts those two groups at the front rather than profit, and like rent extraction. So for me, I think, incentivizing, people who are stewards and whatnot, that is one part of ReFi. But another part is making sure that, we can redesign the existing financial system so that they continue working as efficiently as they do, but they do so while still taking care of the environment. And I think that's way bigger than just incentivizing people. It's also like rewriting generally just the way everything works and how everything connects together. I don't know if that kind of like approaches it to answering your question, Mohammed, but I'd also be curious to hear what others think of it.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that really touches on it. But that will also mean we have a really big task, because if we are talking about uh, rewriting the systems, overhauling some of these things, then we really do have a really big task ahead of us, because this is a planet scale operation. So it's not just about. I think it's all about the collaboration of all the relevant stakeholders, and that is what makes it really big, because uh, the systems, thinking about, or not necessarily just thinking about them, but implementing these new sustainable systems that we are thinking about is not something we can do in a short time. So that also speaks to the monumental task that we have ahead of us in terms of uh, taking up regenerative finance.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree. I think it's where we are right now is in the most formative stages. I think it's going to be a multi-generational effort. It's going to be something that is done, by the current generation, then by our kids and the kids after that. And basically it's going to be something that happens over time before it actually becomes, something that like eventually fits in and becomes a global way of doing things. I think at this point what we are doing is like putting together the tools that are required to build this future, and maybe setting together some of the pilots and the experiments that show us that we are going in the right direction. I think that is what we are doing right now. We are just starting out. We are just, doing that proof of concept and everything, and building those tools that will allow future generations to eventually achieve this dream. But I think it's going to be, it's going to be a lot of work. It's definitely going to be something that takes a long time. We are going to start seeing a lot of the work happening in our generation, and we are going to get some of the benefit, but it's going to be something that, takes quite a while, and takes many years. Yeah.
No, I was quickly just gonna add, like, in terms of incentivizing people to whether look after trees or look after farms and farm, in a way that is good for the environment. I think trees are very fascinating because trees can have a connection with people, or people can have connection with trees. I went back to Africa this year, and there was a tree there, huge tree in our house, and everyone kept saying, that there's like a mark on the tree, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you made that mark." And I'm like, "How do you guys know that?" And then they're like, "Oh, we just know." And I asked around and stuff, and apparently I made this mark when I was a kid, right? Like on the tree. And every year they actually use this tree to get this like a sour fruit, and sometimes sweet as well. So it is kind of interesting in that respect, that these trees that are being planted can have an emotional connection with people, and more so, like, an individual, or collectively, or individual actually can actually plant so many trees, right? Like, but it's not going to have that much effect on the planet compared to if, a vast majority of people actually did that. So I think, yeah, collective effort will make a huge difference.
Yeah, totally, Attack. I think I totally agree with you on that. And I think, trees by themselves, people believe that, they are entities that have their own, like, life force and everything. So it's interesting. I would love to one day see a photo of that tree that you made a mark on and see what that mark was. Maybe in future, people will be traveling to go see that famous tree. But thanks, Attack, for hosting this space. It's been great.
No, thank you everyone thanks for that, and thank you everyone for coming. And any contribution is always really awesome to hear what everyone think the community. And thank you everyone for listening. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next event that we have here on Twitter.
Cool. Thanks, guys. It was a great space. Syed, look out for my email.
Thanks, everyone, and have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Yes, guys.
Mm.